Ladies and gentlemen, special bonus Friday edition of the Far End of the Bench podcast. This will also be available on the Top of the Mountain podcast feed, and we are joined by a very special guest. We are welcoming on 2021 RMAC and Super Region 4 Defensive Player of the Year, Cliff Harris Award finalist, two-time first-team All-RMAC player, Mountaineer of the Year, and 2021 RMAC champion, formerly for Western Colorado University, Will Lydle. Thank you very much for joining us, coming on, taking a little bit of a break outside of your training. I know that you're doing some hard work over there to try and make it to the next level, but we appreciate you coming on and jumping on the podcast here.
Yeah, man, appreciate you bringing me out, man.
All right. So it's kind of, I was going through and making that intro. We obviously played together up at Western for, I was there until 2020. And then I graduated. You obviously stayed through, but of all those accolades that I listed off, what one is probably your favorite that you've accomplished? Which one do you kind of hold nearest and dearest to your heart?
Dude, honestly, probably Mountaineer of the Year. I mean, that has to be it, because that's the one that, like, you know, all your teammates vote on.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the most important one for sure. Because I was honestly surprised that I won that, because I voted for another person. I mean, no one votes for themselves, you know.
Yeah.
So like so yeah, I mean, I voted for someone else because I thought like there's definitely other people more deserving, but that's probably the one that I like the most.
You know, of the guys that it was tough for our class. I remember talking to a few people about it, but there weren't a ton of people that really stuck around for a while. And it makes sense for you to win Mountaineer of the Year, because I think about the guys, especially from that class. I'd say you and Lane probably more than anybody set the example for, you know, off-season workouts and stuff like that. But then also in season, you guys were busting your ass. There was never a dull moment. So you may have been surprised, but it's not surprising for myself or anybody that played with you that you did end up winning that award. But like you said, I figured that might be the case. I know that conference championship was nice, and I'm sure getting the ring finally was a weight off your shoulders. But the Mountaineer of the Year, if you played in that program while they've been giving out that award, that's pretty much what you sweat through winter conditioning workouts at 5:30 in the morning and fall camp practices where we're doing equalizers and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something to hang your hat on. And congrats to you for being able to win that award.
Yeah, thank you. All
right, so let's go back kind of, and we'll go. I want to talk a little bit about your high school career before we get into college and now transitioning, trying to train for the NFL. But you went to Cedar Park High School. Kind of give us an explanation. What was Texas high school football like for you, especially for somebody who wouldn't have been able to experience it as a player in that region?
You know, so in Texas, it's just like, it's super serious, obviously. So like, you know, I think it starts in middle school. Like, that's when you get like there's 7th grade middle school football. No one does like club really, because it's like the middle school is like almost the introductory program to high school usually. So usually like you're running basic high school stuff in middle school. And then once you get to high school, it's like you have like your own period for football. So you have like a football period every day for like an hour and a half. And then like we'd always go in the morning around 6 a.m. It was like, we definitely did a lot of stuff, I think, than more programs. It's kind of wild to think about, you know, how much stuff you did in high school, because they start you at like, you got practice, you got meetings at like 5:30, and then you got practice at 6, and then you got school at 8:30, but practice ends at 8 o'clock. So then you go to school from 8:30 to 11, and then you got football from 11 to 12:30, and then it's like I think lunch is like an hour, then you go back to school for 3 more hours, then you got football after school for 2 more hours. So it's like it's a pretty hefty schedule, man.
Yeah,
like it was pretty wild, because like I know a lot of places in Colorado, at least, they don't have like football periods, and then like practice isn't nearly as long.
Yeah, there's a lot of places, a lot of high schools in Colorado that actually have to like maneuver kids to get just a weightlifting period. Like the high school that I went to, we were placed into what was called advanced fitness, but it was pretty much just football players getting a lift in for 45 minutes, but that was it. That was like the
Really?
extent of our extracurricular activities for practice.
Yeah. So like I remember in our off season weight group, we had like it was a mandatory, like mandatory, like you don't have to go, but you're gonna get yelled at, you're gonna get in trouble if you're not there.
Yeah.
So we'd have that at like what 6:30, something like that, and then like we'd come back and lift in the afternoon. And then like they were like, you need to play a second sport, so everyone played a second sport. So then like I'd be done with school, then I'd go to soccer, or like some kids would go to track. So that was like, yeah, it's
Your second sport was soccer?
yeah,
Why did you choose soccer as your second sport?
because I liked playing soccer and I just didn't want to do track.
Yeah, but between soccer and track, I could see where I thought you'd be a thrower on the track team.
No, I didn't really like throwing. I think like, because dude, like I did throwing in middle school and then I stopped because I just didn't like it because I wanted to go to soccer. So I ended up going to the soccer team, and I was like, I thought that was way more fun because I just grew up playing soccer.
That's a missed opportunity for your high school's throwing coach to get just a massive humanity on your team that could just chuck a rock 45 feet.
I think soccer helped me way more than football, if I'm being honest.
No, that is true. Like you had the endurance that you never really stopped, and you never had to take the big deep breaths that get some defensive linemen in trouble. So your high school was insane. Is Cedar Park, what classification is that? Is that the highest, or is it
They were second highest, but we won state my senior year, my freshman year, and we were runner ups my junior year. But yeah,
is there anybody of note that you would have played with or against that you can think of off the top of your head? Like anybody that went on to have a ton of success?
Oh, like there's probably a lot of people that I like played against that might have gone to the NFL that I just don't remember, if I'm being honest. Because like, for example, like I played against Sam Ellinger, who was the starting quarterback at UT for a while, and now he's in the NFL. And that's one of the more notable guys. But then I played with Jav Guidry was on my team, and he was a corner, and he plays for the Jets now.
But I know that Garrett Wilson was from.
Garrett
Texas
Wilson was from Lake Travis. I never got to play against him because we never played against Lake Travis. But yeah, so I remember him. And then I'm trying to think any other people. I'm sure there's a lot more people, but I never remembered them.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. Like thinking about it from just my perspective, you would remember the people that went on to have high success at like the D1 or NFL level because they're not as common. But at Texas, you can pretty much walk down the street and go to any high school football game and probably find somebody who's gonna have a shot at the next level.
Yeah, because I remember like what's crazy to think about was when I was in 8th grade, I think I went to go watch like a Cedar Park game, and we had some offensive tackle who was an All-American in high school. And he went to go play at Baylor, and then he went to the Browns. And it's like, being in 8th or 7th grade, I wasn't aware of that stuff. So like, and then also in the same game, they were playing Lake Travis, and Lake Travis had like Baker Mayfield on that field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane the kind of talent level that you just stumble across in Texas. So when you get there, did you play a ton throughout your college career? I know in Texas, it's a lot more difficult to kind of get on the field, and you pretty much, there's not a whole bunch of Ironman players. You pretty much have one position that you specialize at. How much experience did you have in your high school career getting on the field?
So in my high school career, I think, so we had 5 teams. So we have a varsity team, 2 JV teams, and then 2 freshman teams. And then so I went and started on the freshman team, obviously my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I was on JV. I was on the JV A team, and I started there. And then I think like at the end of my sophomore year, so like we go out into playoffs and they try to move up a ton of like players just for depth in case like they blow someone out, they start throwing in the freshmen and sophomores. But so they moved me and a few other people up, and I never touched the field. Some people did, but then my junior year, I finally started, and then I was kind of rotating for the most part. And then I finally got the starting job my senior year, but then I broke my ankle, so I never got to finish out. But then I did get to play in our state finals game because I got cleared the week before that.
Were you at nose guard like you were in college? Were you kind of all over the D line?
I was at nose guard, and then I was kind of our backup D end if someone got hurt, but no one ever got hurt, so I never had to play.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't watched Will play, he's surprisingly quick. Like he has the build of a nose guard, but I remember running 40s coming out and seeing the red hair flowing behind you. You running like under 5-second 40s. It's pretty impressive to see what you were able to do. So not hard to understand how you got to look at college, but it is. I'm interested to see how you went from pretty much Central Texas to getting on the radar of the coaches out here in Gunnison at Western Colorado. How did that kind of come about? When did Western start looking at you for college?
I think like I'm trying to think. So my going into my senior year, I kind of just looked at like what schools I wanted to go to. And it was like I wanted to go probably somewhere like out of state, but probably somewhere where I could go skiing. And so it was like I started hitting up, Big Sky schools and then RMAC schools and then a few other schools in that general area. But when I got hurt, a lot of schools stopped talking to me. And then I think Western, like originally I was committed to a D3 school, and that was Mary Hardin Baylor. And they were really good. They won like 3 natties in the last 4 years, I think, at D3. But then I got offered by Western like the day before signing day. So I was like, this is way cheaper and it's also division up. So I'm going to go here instead. And also
you're right in the middle of like 2 very, very nice ski slopes. So
yeah. And
that
so
makes
because
a little bit more sense.
Yeah, because I never took a visit or anything. So I just kind of looked it up, looked at the area, looked up a bunch of stuff about it. And I was like, I'm just going to go here. So I signed the paper and just went. And I was like, all right.
Who was the coach that reached out to you? Do you remember who was the initial recruiting guy? Because the one that reached out to me initially was like gone. I had 3 different coaches that recruited me because they just kept firing the guy that was talking to me. So do you remember who was kind of reached out to you?
It was I think we reached out to them because I filled out their questionnaire, and then I sent them my junior film, some other stuff, and then I think it was Merkins was recruiting me.
All right.
And
I don't remember him. Was he a defensive coach?
He was gone before we got there. I think he was an offensive coach.
Wow.
And then he left, and then I didn't hear from them for a while. And then I think like Coach Van Grohl and Coach Baines contacted me once, and then they called me like the day before signing day and offered me.
Was it what kind of advice were you getting from your parents or like people that you were trying to, was it your decision 100% or were you bouncing it off of other people where you might want to go?
I think for me, like as soon as they offered me, like I was like, this is just so much cheaper. Like I got to do this. And so like I talked to my parents and they were all for it. Some people were a little back and forth, and then I think I went and talked to a few coaches, and then they were telling me that like, it's a division up, you're going to get more money. Like, and then actually my head coach was from the area. Like he was from Paonia.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And he was like, actually, I'm like, he was like talking to me. He's like, really? And then he like showed me the area just like, Google Maps. He's like, yeah, I'm from here. And then he went and looked at the roster and stuff. He's like, yeah, man, like this is a really great area. Like, and then he's like, you snowboard and stuff? I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, yeah, this is the area you probably want to be in. But they can't really tell you what to do. So they're just giving you their advice, Yeah. So like ultimately, like I was already deciding that I was going to go there. Like, it was just like, after that offer, it was just like, me justifying the decision leading up to like signing day.
Were you ever considering maybe going somewhere did you have any PWO offers or maybe like going into maybe a bigger school that would maybe like a Division 1A school that maybe didn't offer you, but you could get a walk-on and possibly earn money that way?
I had a few preferred walk-ons, but it's just like when you really look at it, if you have somewhere that really wants you, then you might as well go there, which is what was Mary Harlan Baylor was to me. And so then if you have somewhere who wants you and then you're paying way less money, it's like you're gonna go there because they need you. And so that's why I went to Western. But I think I had a preferred walk on at University of Colorado Boulder, actually, and that was way too expensive. So I couldn't afford that for sure.
Yeah, out of state tuition there is nuts. Plus, like, good luck. I know finding housing in Gunnison off campus was difficult right now with Boulder. Like, Amazon's moving into Boulder, so good luck finding housing anywhere close to the campus.
Yeah, I remember I got like a PWO, and then I looked up the tuition. I was like, yeah, this would be really cool, but like I can't afford this, man.
Yeah,
and
it's nuts. It's nuts.
For me, it was like I kind of thought it was almost a shot in the dark trying to get recruited from the giant schools because I just didn't have a lot of film for my junior year. Mm-hmm. And then so what else did I have? I think I had a preferred walk-on from North Texas, but I can't really remember.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the year after they changed coaching staff. So I think they were looking for players. And then Texas State, I think, gave me a preferred walk-on. But that was probably the only preferred walk-on I kind of considered because my dad was an alumni and they give out a bunch of alumni scholarships and stuff like that. But besides that, I had a walk-on offer from Midwestern State, and that's the D2 in Texas. And then I had the offer from Western, and then I had D3 Mary Harlan Baylor. And that was it basically.
It's surprising because the junior film is important. Did you go to camps or anything to try and get in front of coaches, or was it? How was the high school's kind of recruiting process? Did the coaches help you out and get you in front of some coaches?
I don't think I really got a ton of help until like my senior year. We had a guy who he had like a lot of connections, and he would help us with our film and stuff. But it's kind of late when you're a senior in high school to try and do all that stuff. And I didn't really have like I think my jump between my junior year of like high school football to my senior year was just exponential. Because I wasn't very good my junior year, and then I gained not only a ton of strength, but I also lost weight. So that was weird. I think between my junior and senior year, I dropped like 20 pounds, but I gained like a ton of strength on my squat and my bench and everything else. So it was kind of just a massive jump in, skill.
Yeah, I think it probably ended up working out the best way possible, especially looking now back at the way things ended. But before we get into playing in college, did you have like what was the biggest change when you went from Cedar Park, Texas to Gunnison, Colorado? What was the first thing you noticed?
Well, it was weird because I think I visited, I definitely visited late April, I think. Yeah, I visited late April. That was my first visit, I believe. I think. No, it was around March because it was pretty cold. That was my first visit. And then in April, it was way warmer, but I hadn't seen it when it was super cold. But like what was really weird was like our freshman year, that was like the coldest Gunnison was the
coldest and most snow.
The whole 5.5 years I had lived there. So that was insane because it was like one point it was like -40. And I'm like, I have like pictures on my phone or on my Snapchat, and people were just like, dude, like where are you living? And it's like down in Texas, it's like 100, where Cedar Park was 100% humidity every day. And then it's like, I mean, it gets cold, but it's not, negative cold, and it's not
dry.
Like snowing all the time, and it's not dry. It's like, so yeah, it was just pretty different climate, man.
When you got did you have to adjust to altitude and everything? Because you stayed when you got there the first year. Did you stay up during all summers that you were there?
I think I did for the most part.
Was that because you needed to make sure you stayed adjusted to the altitude?
That was part of it, but one thing I did realize is as I was going there, like once you leave altitude, like like, and then you come back, it's not as hard getting back into it as it is like your first time dealing with it. Cause I remember my first time dealing with it, like I was running like 30, 40 yards behind people just because I was out of breath. And then like as you get used to it, it's like, oh, this is normal now. But like I think what was it? Second summer. So after my high school year, after my like, high school summer going into college, I went up there for half a summer, and thank God I did, because adjusting the altitude was insane. And so like the next summer I was there all summer, and then the next summer I was kind of in and out because my parents were moving from Texas to Colorado.
Mhm.
And then the next few summers after that I was there the whole time.
Yeah. So you get there for fall camp in 2016. You and I, same recruiting class. You're also there with Lane, who we were talking about with your training before, we started recording the podcast. What was one thing that you were nervous about at the playing at the next level? And what was something that you were like, what gave you confidence when you first got to campus?
I think my strength helped me a lot, because I was always like ready, like, like,
did you know you were probably one of the strongest guys in the room from the first day?
no, probably not until like I really looked at the weight room board.
Mhm.
But like I think when it came down to it, like my power clean wasn't very strong, but my squat and bench were, because like I was always down, go to the weight room, but I hated running. So I think running was more my weak point. But I don't know, like once I got into college weight room lifting, like I was getting way stronger, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just for those who don't know, what did you end up having your all-time maxes be when you were at Western for bench, squat, and clean?
It's like
4 plus for bench, I'm sure.
It was 1420 total, I
1420.
I think so. So it was like 430 something bench or 40, and then it was like 670 squat, and then my highest clean was 330. So yeah, I think that's right.
I still tell stories about you. I remember watching you. You were squatting 650, and I still tell stories about that because it was like the end of the maxing session. I was looking over. You had already done like 3 or 4 testing periods. You got under 650, and it was no pause at the bottom or anything. Or you talked about you kind of grew in strength your senior year. Was it just one day that you walked in and you realized, wow, I'm just like naturally strong now?
I don't know. I think, I think the big thing is like, you need to, like, once you really know like strength, and then you start like doing the little things like your diet, for example. So like when we were on campus, right, we're all eating Sodexo. That's not, it's not the greatest thing to be eating.
The company that gave all of us food poisoning before one of our games. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So like that's not the greatest thing to be eating if you want to gain strength. Because I remember my first 2 years, I was struggling to gain strength because of that. Once I moved off campus, it was like
game on.
It was like you're just putting on like strength, like pounds after pounds on each one of your lifts. Because I remember one year I had like a 50-pound jump in my squat, and then I had like a almost 70-pound jump in my squat.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you get your diet down, that's really where you start getting stronger.
Yeah, and you always had, like, being at that rack that you were, you always had really good guys around you to push you, like working out with Weber and Benegas. I know would put in a lot of work.
Yeah, so we had like Weber, we had Benegas, and then even Rev was like, he was fun to work out with, because he was like, he was usually pretty positive in the weight room.
Oh yeah, like, the listeners know Rev. He's been on the podcast a few times. So as Rev is on the podcast, that's how he is in the weight room. Also, he's just super strong.
He's just like, he just comes in. I remember one day, like me and Weber were benching. I don't remember what year this was. I think it was going into 19. He comes in, I think it was over the summer. He just goes, "I'm a problem." And that's all he says all day.
Rev
He
the
just starts
problem coca.
benching every single rep. He's like, problem, problem, problem. And
Yeah.
he just, me and Weber were dying the whole time. So he was always a good guy to be around with. Weber and Benegas, they were always, getting after it. So it's like you got those guys around you. It's a good group. You always go in the weight room and you're just like, all right, let's get after it today with these guys.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge thing, just having the right lifting partner. I remember I think I had one spring where I was with Caleb Gaster and Lane, and it was me, Caleb, and Lane all in the same group. And I think like somebody else was thrown in there, but just the three of us all having the same, like if you got three guys with the same mindset where we come in and we get to work, that's all you really like. People think there's some secret to success. You have to be born with a lot of it. Getting a lot of the work done is like a huge step in that process.
Yeah, for sure.
So you redshirt. Were you disappointed that you redshirted your first year, or were you looking for that extra time to develop a little bit?
Well, for me, it was like, you want to go in and play, but then it's like when Van Grohl sat me down, he's like, "Hey, so like, we're going to look at you for a few special teams. Maybe you redshirt, maybe you don't." And it's like, all right. And then like, I went through it and it was like kind of hard for me to like grasp a few things because I have never done it before. And then so eventually they were like, so, I mean, if you're not going to play that much, I don't want to I want to redshirt you because like, you're not going to get a ton of playing time. And the playing time you do get, it's not going to be very meaningful. And I was like, well, it's like a pretty good point. Cause when you're young, you look at it like, oh man, like I'm redshirting, but like when you get older and then it's like, okay, well, like, it was way better that I got tons and tons of playing time and compared to like my first year, just not playing that much or at all.
Yeah.
Like I would have rather, save that shirt for, last year, for example. Mm-hmm. So like, I mean, if I didn't redshirt, then I probably wouldn't have played this past season, which I mean, then it's like, who knows where your development would have gone.
Yeah. I think, the redshirting, you were in a good position to redshirt too, because Austin Yurko was the starting nose guard.
We had Yurko, and he was really good. He was like an all-regional guy.
First or fifth year senior, just a guy like the toughest bastard. And I got the privilege of blocking him every day during scout team that first year in 2016. And yeah, he was a beast. So you got to sit behind him a little bit, learn, but the lifting that you guys did as red shirts, because I was a part of the group that was redshirting, but they still traveled me because I needed a clipboard bitch. So I didn't get to lift with the red shirts, and I've noticed it going into Max's that spring. Like you guys were all jumping numbers way high, and I had been doing in-season lifts for that entire time, and like I totally missed out. So I would say people get disappointed redshirting, but if you take advantage of the weight room that redshirt year, it sets you up so far ahead in your career. And I think that's partially why you were able to develop as fast as you did, because you redshirted that first year. And then from then on, you were pretty much in the games, gung-ho, like a major part of the defense.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it also got me, because I was never really that good at school, probably until my second year of college. So it really helped me get used to it.
Takes everybody a little time to get used to it.
Yeah. So like for me, at least, it got me ready for, any academic, struggles that I could encounter, because I think that first semester was just not a good academic semester for me. I mean, I didn't fail. I didn't get any D's or F's, but like it was a pretty low GPA. Mm-hmm. But then like the next semester I was at 3.0s from there on out. So I think that helped me with college, because who knows, like, if I'm traveling on the road and I'm a freshman, like I don't know much about like how,
it was rough, especially because that was the year that we traveled South Dakota, or we did California and then South Dakota in the bus. So I missed Wednesday, Thursday, Friday 1 week, and then Thursday, Friday the following week of my freshman year of college. So when I went in for finals, I went to the study group for finals, and I was just sitting there like, I don't remember a thing. I wasn't here. So yeah, it's huge to have that time to develop. So when you do get the chance to play, where did you feel a little pressure to kind of come in and perform? Because we talked about you're taking over for a fifth year senior like Austin Yurko, or did you kind of feel like relieved that you weren't sitting anymore, you were actually going to be in the games and playing on Saturdays?
I think like, it's, you kind of like, you go into that role, and then it's like, I think I started the first few games and I was rotating, and then I started again, then I rotated, but you just don't really know the skill level that you're getting into. And I think that first year, when we weren't good, we kind of like, we had a lot of inexperienced guys. So I think a lot of those guys just didn't understand what we were going to face.
Yeah.
Going into it.
Yeah, that was the rough 1-10 season. And then the following year we followed it up with a 2-9. And then 2019 was 5-6. So in those years, like that's 8 wins in 3 seasons of football. I'm sure that you've never experienced something like that. I had never experienced something like that. How frustrating, like what was the frustration level for you? Because you were on the defensive side, and in that time, the defense was actually what was carrying the team. And the reason why we had those 8 wins was pretty much because the defense just held the other team to no points. So our anemic offense could get something done. What was the feeling like on the defensive side of the ball during that time?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, there was a huge difference between the 5-6 team versus the 1-10 team. Because like in the 1-10 team, we just were not getting anything done whatsoever out there. So, I mean, and then you look at the next team up, like the 2-8 team, or was it 2-9? It was 2-9.
I think 2-9.
Yeah. So that team, like we played close games, and then sometimes we get killed, and then sometimes we had 2 games where we won, and then it's just like those first 2 seasons, it was like, what's the problem here, and then it's like, I think like our defense was decent in 18. It was like bad in 17, if I'm being honest. And then, in 19, I think the whole team kind of picked it up, but we were still missing that, like something, like there was some stuff there that was missing.
Yeah.
But I think when it came down to it, like it was kind of just like frustrating when things weren't going your way. And then like, obviously, like if you're a D tackle or defensive lineman, there's only so much you can do,
Mm-hmm.
Like even if I go out and get like 4 sacks, you can still lose the game. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
You just gotta do as much as you can, regardless of whichever way the ball's going or what play it is or what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just gotta kind of keep grinding. That's why like we did so well this past year, is because we had so many dudes who had just been there for a while.
That's true. I mean, the super senior class with that extra year of eligibility was probably a huge thing. I think I talked about it a lot on the top of the mountain during that season. Just the fact that there were a lot of guys that went through some bad years, like some rough years. It's no fun when you win 1 game 1 season and 2 games the next. There's not a whole bunch of fun happening during football season. I agree with you. That 5-6 team was totally different, and I credit it like that was the year we went on the road and beat Mesa in Grand Junction for the first time since 2001 on a last second field goal. There was a couple other teams that we had, like the first time we'd done this in however many years. So that was kind of the year that we took to get all of the monkeys, like the team took to get all the monkeys off their back. And then the pandemic happened. So when that coronavirus pandemic happened, how quickly did you have a plan in place for what you were going to do? And was there ever a time where you were like, I guess I can finish college and be done and see what else is out there for me? But what was kind of the planning when that pandemic happened between 2019 and 2020?
I think, like we were preparing. So, I think it was like we went into off season, and then we had like, I think it was right before spring break. It was like we were going to do our winter conditioning after spring break, and then they canceled everything past spring break. So no one really came back until like May. And so I didn't come back until May, and I was working out in my parents' garage with barely any weight, and I was running at Chatfield High School down the street. And then we didn't really think about it. We didn't think the whole like season was going to get canceled. And then I think like around June, it started rolling around because we didn't have spring ball. We weren't allowed to have like, more than 10 people in the weight room and stuff like that. And so like once June rolled around, or not June, it was July, like late July, it was like, people started wondering like, hey, we're gonna have a season. And I think that was because like this was before any of the big conferences canceled. So for example, like a bunch of like almost all of D3 had already canceled at this point, and then pretty much the whole eastern, I think like the whole eastern side of the country, like every single D2 conference over there had pretty much canceled. And then like I think so we were just wondering, and it was like dude, because I was like I remember what happened, like what I was doing, and it was just like it was like a major like bummer, it was just like like something bad happens and you're just like, oh damn, like this sucks. It's like, what I'm saying, like I don't know how to put it, but like I was walking down going to work, or like my summer job at the old miner, and I just get a text and Bane's just like, well guys, season's canceled, I'm sorry this happened, a bunch of other stuff. And I was just like, dude. But like I had like a plan in place probably like 2-3 weeks before. And like I knew like I wanted to come back because I feel like I can't just end it on that, like I wanted to come back. I wanted to see like what I was capable of, like what as a team we were going to be capable of.
Did you play in the game against Stephen F. Austin, or did you?
No, I didn't. I took that semester off, and so I think only like 2 seniors played. But then a bunch of people were hurt who weren't seniors, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong. And then like I don't remember how many people opted out, but we had like almost the whole senior, like pretty much the whole senior class except for Ty, Leba, and Eli opted out. But no, I didn't play in that game. I actually had to watch that game while I was working, and that was really not fun.
Yeah,
I'm just sitting there, like I'm cooking at the old miner and I'm watching this game on my phone, and it's like, I mean, they were getting killed, but like I still wish I was out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean there was a lot that game shouldn't have happened. Stephen F. Austin shouldn't have requested that game to happen if they did, and I don't think that I get why it was accepted and all of that, but it wasn't the right situation. So yeah, I remember I watched that game. It was rough.
Because like, you go into the game and it was like, a Western team with a lot of players opted out, and then a lot of younger players having to step in. And then on top of that, they didn't have a spring ball. They didn't have a fall camp.
And Stephen F. Austin is a program that's decent most of the time.
Yeah. They had we didn't get to have a lot of like, full team summer workouts at all, pretty much. And so they went into it, and Stephen F. Austin was like halfway through their season. They're in mid-season form, and Western's playing their first game against a team who actually last season was ranked and made FCS playoffs.
Yeah, it was a tough one to watch, but then does that kind of get the fire burning? Because there's obviously something that happened between the 2019 close of the season and the beginning of the 2021 season, where you have the best record-wise, best season since the year 2000 for Western Colorado. All happened between the ending of that 2019 season and the beginning of the 2021 season. What was the change? What was the catalyst what do you think kind of put the team on the right track and put everybody on the same page moving forward, that this was going to be a season everybody was going to remember and you guys were going to make a run?
I think, going into the next season, like we had a lot of people returning with experience. Like we returned the whole offense, I'm pretty sure, except for I think Zach Manchester from 19. So we had the whole offense coming back, and then we had a healthy Josh coming back. He had like a full 2 years basically to work on his like what was wrong with him and stuff. And then because I think it was his knees had always been bothering him, so he got a lot of time to work on that. So he came in pretty healthy. A lot of guys had time to work on whatever like they wanted to work on. And so like it all just came around. I think we had like a really experienced group, and then we built like there was a lot of like camaraderie on the team. Like I think a lot of people got along with each other. Like I think for the most part, like I hung out with not only a lot of defensive guys, but a lot of offensive guys as well, which, usually that doesn't happen on like a football team.
Mhm.
And, we're just doing a lot more stuff together, just outside of football, doing a bunch of random, stuff around the valley. But, going back to the last question, what my plan was going into, the cancellation, I was like, I told Baines, I was like, I'm going to take the semester off because I think what happened to my brother was, and when he was in college, he lost his eligibility because he played, I think, 2 games and they wouldn't give him the medical or something like that because he broke his knee. So I was like, I'm not gonna risk possibly losing eligibility. And then on top of that, I was like, I had 15 credits, so I took 12 in the spring, and then I only took 1 class last semester. So that 1 class last semester was pretty nice. And then I think, so I worked that fall. I just worked at the old miner and I did EMT classes online. And that was basically all I did, and then work out.
What was your degree in?
It was business admin with an emphasis in management, and then it was a double with economics.
Okay. So,
But I think going into that 21 season, like a lot of things were falling together. They were like coming together. Like I think that was probably the most experienced group that we could have built.
probably since that 2016 team, I was thinking about that. Like, it makes sense why 2017 was as bad as it was, because you graduate Aravi, you graduate Kyle Adkins, Austin Yurko, Holden Rexis, Austin Eckler, Vince Grosso. Like, those are 6 very, very important players on both sides of the ball. So that team finally did come back. Honestly, I started noticing something a little bit different, and it's silly, but like that Pain Cave page that you guys started on Instagram, when the Pain Cave came out, I was like, they're working. Like, they're not just sitting around, they're doing something. And you could tell everybody was in there, they were having a good time, and you guys were pushing each other. And I started to see, like, I remember, people that were never at the workouts, they were getting into it and like getting after it. So I think that you could definitely tell the culture of the team through that just, fun little Instagram pages you guys started.
We kind of started that like a little bit as a joke, because like, that was probably the most fun I had working out was in the Pain Cave, because it was just a bunch of random equipment.
Where was that, by the way?
It was in Connor Desch's garage. And so like I remember, like, for example, like Drew would come over, and me and like a few other people, we'd go, because the high school's across the street from his house, and we'd go and push for a finisher, we'd go and push a car through the parking lot. And I remember like some days, like, because it's pandemic, everything's closed, we're all bored. So like I remember one day, like I was working out there for 5 hours just because I was bored. Like I remember one time I showed up, and like Connor, James, and Jack Anderson were working out. And by the time I left, like they were still working out. And I was there for like 4 hours that different day.
Yeah.
So like we had a ton of people there.
Yeah, it looked like it started like kind of as a joke, but the longer it went on, the more people were showing up, and the more you guys were like, there's a difference about this Mountaineer team. It's not the Mountaineers that were getting blown out by 35, 40 points a game. These are guys that are going to come in. I said going into it, I think the preseason ranking, do you remember what the preseason ranking was like 7, or I think it was around 6 or 7, like not necessarily remember. Middle, maybe like a little bit lower than middle. But I felt something different about the team just through that Instagram page.
Yeah, because I mean, we didn't have a ton of people up in Gunnison, but we were definitely getting after it. And then even like I think throughout the rest of the year, like me and whoever else, because we couldn't use the student gym because we'd have to pay, ridiculous amounts of money to get in there. But we also couldn't use the athletics gym because we weren't technically in the school still. Mm-hmm. So we would just work out there, which it was fun too. Cause like, it's basically like your own little private gym.
Yeah. And so you come back for that season in 21. You go 3-0 right off the bat. there's some question. It was three teams. That game against Shadron was a big statement, but then it was kind of two teams that you probably should have beaten in Adams. And you get to week 4, and that's the game against Colorado Mines. And I know like that was the team for 2018 and 2019 that kind of put the most embarrassing beating on us. So going into that game, knowing that it was two undefeated teams, what was the mindset when you guys were going to Golden for that trip?
I think for us, we knew there was a lot at stake because we weren't even ranked, and I think they were ranked like top 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was like, for me, it was like we didn't know where we stood because, we're 3. I think we're 3-0, or were we 4-0?
You guys, that was week 4, so you were 3-0.
I think we were 4-0 because we came off Fort Lewis, I think.
Oh yeah, yep, you're right.
So like, I mean, we played like 0-11 Fort Lewis, and then 1-10. I think before that it was 1-10 Adams and 1-10 Western New Mexico, and then Shadron. And I think even in that Shadron game, like I felt it at least. I think a lot of people hadn't played in a game in a while. Like I felt rusty. Like I did not feel like myself.
Yeah.
And I think once I got into Western New Mexico and Adams, that's when I started to get more loose. That's when I started really getting loose, because I was like, all right, we're back in this. Like, this is like, okay, we're back playing football. Like, this is what I was coming back for.
Yeah, and then you get the nice tune-up against Fort Lewis before, because everybody just took that Fort Lewis week as a nice tune-up game, a pad in the stats day.
Because for me, I think, we hadn't been tested yet.
Yeah.
So, like, that Mines game, like, I knew there was going to be tons of people there. It was a sold-out crowd. It was probably, like, almost 1.5 times more than what they said the attendance was, because there was a ton of people there.
Yeah.
Most
on TV as well. It was on local TV.
Most I've seen at a Mines game, in any of the Mines games I've played in or have watched, because I used to go to some of their playoff games, and that was definitely the most I've seen there. But it was like a lot of pressure, but it was like at the same time, like I felt ready. Like, you got to make sure you're ready for the game. So I made sure, like, watch as much film as possible, take practice seriously, pay attention, like, make sure that you're ready. So when you go out there, like, you feel comfortable. But, obviously a ton of pressure, because, you have RMAC championship on the line. You have a possible ranking on the line. Now you're 4-0. So you also have a playoff appearance on the line.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot at stake, and you're also playing at their place, and you don't know what their off season was. Like, you don't know what their record, you don't know like what they did in the off season. They don't then again, they don't know what we did, except aside from that Stephen F. Austin game. So there was a lot of like question marks out there. But then like once we started getting out there, it was, started getting a little comfortable, because it was the most competitive game I played in all of college, at least.
Do you think that, or were you even aware? Did you care what they kind of thought of you guys? Did you think they maybe underestimated you and then got surprised, or was it truly just the teams were that evenly matched that it went into overtime, and maybe a couple questionable calls was really the only deciding factor of the game?
I think they probably did underestimate us, because if you really look at their playoff run, like, they did really well.
Yeah.
But then again, as how I played football, you take everyone the same amount of seriousness going into it, because you never know what could happen out there. But I think for them, like, it definitely came as, I don't know what was going. I'm not in their program, so I can't tell you what they were thinking, but it definitely seemed like, they weren't. I mean, if you look at a fan perspective, everyone's probably thinking that Mines is going to run us over.
Yeah.
Just looking at, strength of schedule prior. But I mean, you never know what happens when you go out there. So
I will say, I talked to one of my buddies that I played youth football with, was on Mines, and he was their middle linebacker coach for their defense. I was talking to him after, it was the day after they lost to Mesa. And he goes, I have no clue how we lost to those guys, because Western was twice the team that Colorado Mesa was, even though that we ended up beating Western. So you guys earned their respect. However they felt before that game, I can tell you for a fact that you guys earned their respect, and they considered you probably up until the playoffs their most difficult opponent that they had all season.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you never really know how to gauge someone, you know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, people could be hurt, people could be banged up, and then, you know, maybe they couldn't sleep the night before. There's so many variables in, you know, football. Because you can look at, you know, all the statistics you want, but then, like, that's why you have, like, upsets in sports, you know? It's just, it's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah.
Because I think they lost to Mesa, and I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, and then I thought Mesa was going to give you guys a game, and you guys went out and pounded on Mesa. So it truly was like any small slight difference in that day that you guys played Colorado Mines, the outcome of that game probably shifts 3 or 4 different ways. That's how razor thin the margin of error was.
Yeah, it was that was a really close one for sure. You know, there is a couple few, like, you know, points in the game where it's like, if that didn't happen, we would have lost. But if that did happen, we would have won, you know? So it's like, but, you know, when you have a close game like that, that's just how it is. That's just how all football games are when they're that close.
How fulfilling was it after that Colorado State Pueblo game, the CSU Pueblo game? You guys win. You guys know that you at least get a share of the conference title. We talked about the 2017 to 2019 seasons. After going through all of that, the COVID shutdown, can you explain, do you have any words to kind of explain how you felt after winning that share of the RMAC title?
I mean, when I think, like, you know, the point where we clinched the game, basically, because I remember, like, I was on the punt unit and I block the guy. I look around, I look back, and I see Kyle Yonker on the ground with a flag over his head flying in the air, and I just started laughing. I go up to Kyle, and I'm like, good job, Kyle. And I'm like, we just won the championship, man. And then I'm like, I just started, like, laughing, and I'm like, you know, it's like one of those moments where it's like, you know, you have those perfect moments where it's everything came together. And, you know, it's like those 6 years of, you know, all the bad times, all the good times, they all pile into that one moment. And it was kind of, you know, just thinking about, the big thing for me was thinking about just how far we had come from where we were in 2017. I think that was the craziest part for me, you know, just seeing the growth of not only myself, but every single other teammate that I had up to that point and how we got there. So I think that was the biggest part for me, was just thinking about how much growth that every single person had to go through in order to get to that point.
It probably wouldn't have felt as sweet if you didn't have to go through those seasons where, you know, things never seemed to go the right way. So I'm sure I was very proud, just as an alumni and as a guy who's played with. I love being able to say that you won a conference title, that Lane won a conference title. These guys that I've played with and have been around, that I knew, like, you know, even the offensive line guys, I was super pumped for them too. Just I've been there with you guys, right next to you guys, know the work that you've put in, and, you know, it wasn't meant to happen while I was there, but I'm damn glad that it happened for guys that I've put in the work with. So it was awesome being able to see you guys, you know, win that championship and go on and play in the playoffs, which I'm sure was a hell of an experience in and of itself.
Yeah. It was like, you know, you put in so much work, and it's just like, the best part about it is really seeing it all come to fruition, you know. That's what, you know, sports and, you know, life in general is all about.
Definitely. So before we're going to get to rapid fire questions, that's how we normally end interviews on this podcast. But before we get to that, kind of talk about your strategy moving forward. You're looking to get a shot at the league. I've mentioned it a couple of times. And you're going through some training right now with some teammates from college, as well as some foes from college, and Trevor Filio and Lane Ferris at Landau. So how's that been going for you?
I think, you know, it's been going pretty well. It's definitely a different type of training. Like, you know, you're not really practicing for a football game. It's more preparing for the individual pro day. You know, like, people put in a ton of, like, you see these people drop these just insane numbers on their 40 or whatever drill it is. And, it's not like some of them didn't just hop up there and just do that day. Like they've been practicing that forever. So that's basically what it is. But, like practicing with, training with there's a few Pueblo guys there. There's one Fort Lewis kid there, Dylan Holt. And then I think that's it from our conference, actually. There's no Mesa or Mines guys there. But
did you get hooked up training there? What was that process like?
Coach Baines recommended them to me. And then so did Van Grohl, a few other people. And it was mainly because Austin worked out there. And so, but working out with Trevor and all them, yeah, you had to play against those guys, but like I don't ever got to play against them anymore. So it's like, it's fun just, being around them, They're good guys. Like I like all of them for sure. They're cool, especially Trevor. He's a pretty cool guy. Because I do a lot of drills with him too, because he's an edge guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to high school with Trev, actually. We won state championship back in 2015 before he went on to Pueblo, and I went out to Western. So Trev's a great training partner to have too. I remember him in the weight room, and he was one of the first guys that I was able to look at and just go, I wasn't gifted like he was. He's just naturally that strong and big, and he's got a hell of a work ethic. So how are things going with the training? You feel yourself getting more prepared, do you think, or is it still a little bit early to tell?
If I had to do my pro day right now, I would say like I do all right, but I wouldn't say like I'd be okay with those numbers. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's all about just getting better every single day. And so I think I'm about like 2-3 weeks out. I think I'm about 3 weeks out. So I still got like a ton of time to work with.
Yeah. Where are you doing your pro day at?
Mine's going to be at Pueblo.
At Pueblo. Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be good because, sometimes the small school guys get overlooked when they go to different schools, but at least that's the same division in the same conference. So that'll be a good venue, and I'm pumped for you guys. That's going to be awesome.
From what I know, there's going to be a lot of RMAC guys there.
Good.
From what I know.
Yeah. That's good. What's needed for the conferences like that. That's what Dion's trying to do at the HBCUs too, is just getting like focus on that conference and those players. Because there's a lot of guys that should get at least a look or a chance at the next level, whether that be, there's a ton of different leagues that you can play in now. So it should be, I'm looking forward to you guys running through that. That'll be a lot of fun. So you ready for rapid fire questions to wrap this thing up? I've taken up enough of your time, I think.
Sure. How does this really work?
I'll just give you a question and you give me the first answer that you can think of off the top of your head.
Gotcha.
All right. Best restaurant in Gunnison.
Ooh. Can you specify breakfast or dinner or what?
All right. We'll go best breakfast spot because I know there's a few really good breakfast spots, and then we'll go best place for like a dinner. So breakfast and then dinner.
Oh, dinner. I'll start with dinner. I'll probably go with the Old Miner just because I worked there. And then
it's a good choice.
And then I'll say it's probably just a tie between the Dub and Backcountry.
I was gonna say, are you a Dub guy or are you a Backcountry guy? Because I was a Dub guy. Backcountry I heard a lot about, but I've never actually,
Well, dude, I was like I'm definitely, I go to the Dub, but then I'll go to Backcountry. It usually just depends. Like if I'm by myself, I'll go to the Dub. But then if I'm with people and they go to the Backcountry, I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. You're getting two different. It's kind of, one is different. One's more like, the Dub is more of a country style place.
Yeah.
And then I think Backcountry is just like, it's got a little bit different flavors to it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think it just depends what mood you're in.
Probably.
That's my thing.
Probably. Favorite road trip destinations. That could be like when you guys stopped at the monuments in South Dakota, or, we've done a lot of road trips where we had multiple stops and like stayed in different hotels and you kind of figure out where you like to stay. So favorite road trip destination.
My favorite road trip was definitely to South Dakota.
South Dakota?
Yeah, whichever one, because it's like the same trip basically.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite road trip was Black Hills 19.
There you go. Was that
And
when
then-
you guys went to the Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, but we also went last year, so it was like, I'd say last year was fun, but we did have a bus breakdown at one point, so I would say 19 was better.
There you go. Who was your road dog? Who did you sit next to on the bus? Who'd you room with on the road?
I didn't really sit next to anyone. I had my own seat, but
You were that guy, huh?
yeah, I was that guy, especially my last 2 years. But when it came to the roommates, I had my freshman and sophomore year, it was Benegas. And then my last 2 years, it was Jalen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who did you have a preference? Did you just were they good roommates? Did you enjoy your?
They were
trips?
pretty good roommates.
All right. Last one. Favorite opposing venue that you've played at?
Oh, it was probably mine's last year, man.
Yeah.
That was
it
the
seemed
best
like
one.
it was a
That was
really
the best.
fun atmosphere.
That was one of the best games I've played in probably all of college. Besides Mesa. I'd say Mesa 19 was probably the best.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably a tie between Mesa 19 and 21 Mines.
Rushing that field, Mason 19 was something.
That was crazy.
Especially because like nobody was sure that kick was going in. That thing was tipped at the line of scrimmage and it just sneaked over the crossbar and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was crazy because I didn't know like the time had ran out and everyone rushed to the field and I kind of just stopped and I'm like, we're gonna get penalty for this. And then I was like, oh, the game's over. And I just started. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Will, I can't thank you enough for giving up some of your time and jumping on for a quick interview. Hopefully you get to get back and get training for that pro day that you have coming up in a few weeks. But before we go, you want to give out a page, a social media page or anything like that for people to keep an eye on you moving forward?
I mean, all of my ads are just at Will Lydle. So
there you go.
You can find me anywhere on those.
I'll put those in the description of the episode below. Be sure to keep on the lookout if you're listening for Will moving forward. I'm sure we're going to get some kind of a look in a professional league for Will and that pro day coming up also. But once again, thank you for coming on. You were the second most difficult nose guard that I've had to block in my time at Western behind Yurko, and that was only because he was 23 when I was 18. So really proud of what you were able to accomplish, and I can't wait to see what you're able to do moving forward. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, Jimmy. See you.
See ya.